Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to welcome our special guest, Steve Tyrell. He's a jazz musician, a performer, a singer. He's here to talk about his new album coming February 7th, I'll Take Romance. Thanks so much for joining us. My first question, what was life like growing up?
I'm Italian descent. My family had a grocery store in the 5th Ward of Houston, Texas. And it was my grandparents' grocery store. And after World War II, my father and mother took it over. So I was raised in kind of the all-black neighborhood of Houston, Texas, by Italian parents. So that's what it was like growing up. It was during segregation and in the South. And so we listened to a lot of Italian singers, of course, Frank Sinatra and, Dino and Perry Como and all those people, plus had an influence of great rhythm and blues people like Louis Jordan and Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Ella, Billie Holiday, all that fused together when I was a kid, and that was the influences that I had musically and socially.
As far as your vocals, what vocalist, if you could pick just one, has influenced you the most?
Ray Charles.
Ray Charles, certainly a great singer.
I think he's the best ever, for my money,
What is it about his style of singing that you like so much?
Well, I love the sound of his voice, just his influences on where he takes each line of the melody and how he changes it. And I most appreciate the fact that he can sing any kind of song, make it his own in like one line, whether it's country, jazz, gospel, pop, blues, whatever it is, standards, whatever it is that Ray Charles sings, it's immediately his, and it's immediately distinguishable, and he can do it all equally well. Some people can sing standards really well, or they can sing jazz really well, or they can sing country really well. Ray Charles can sing anything really well.
Why do you think there has been such a renaissance in the interpretations of the American standards?
I'm proud to say I feel a little bit a part of that. When I sang The Way You Look Tonight in Father of the Bride, that was the first standard I had ever sung. I came up in rhythm and blues and pop music, working as a record producer, and, I worked with Burt Bacharach and Dionne Warwick and a lot of the rhythm and blues artists that were on Scepter Records when I started. So I kind of Otis Redding, I kind of came from that world. And when I sang The Way You Look Tonight, it was a new thing for me, and it introduced me to the Great American Songbook, and I just fell in love with it. And I sang, people started telling me I should make an album of standards, and especially Steve Martin. I thought to myself, who would buy it? Because there was nobody really doing it. Harry Connick had done it years before, and when Harry Met Sally, and every once in a while somebody would come along. Natalie Cole did a tribute album to her father, but she came from rhythm and blues as well. Nobody was really doing standards at that 1992 when we did that movie, except for Tony Bennett, who had always done it. That's his music, he's the dean of all of us. Anyway, I finally made an album after the second movie for Atlantic Records. It started to do really well. I think it was on the charts for about 3 years or something. Then Rod Stewart heard that album, and he started coming to my concerts and stuff, and we became friends. And he asked me if I would produce his album, singing the Great American Songbook, and I did. And the first album I produced for Rod Stewart was his first #1 album in 25 years, and won he and me a Grammy. And then David Foster started calling me up and asking me how many I was selling on my Standards album, and told me, that he and his wife played my first 2 albums around the house all the time. And I think ultimately he was producing Josh Groban at the time, and I think ultimately that led to him in his association with Michael Bublé, and then all of a sudden people have started to see how great these songs are. So I think in answer to your question, the reason that there's a renaissance is because people are singing them. Whenever people, through 70 years, sings the Great American Songbook, I don't care what age you are, what gender you are, what your background is, people, when they're exposed to those great songs, fall in love with them. I think Rod Stewart's audience is the perfect example. Baby boomers that never had anything in common with the Great American Songbook. except it was their parents' music. When they heard Rod do it, they started listening to these songs and went, oh, man, that's great. And Michael Bublé, when he did it, he turned it on to a whole bunch of young people that had never heard these songs. So that's your answer. If these songs continue to be heard, they will continue to be popular.
I understand that even the Sinatra family came to you after you were in the movie singing. Tell us about that experience. I bet you that was just an incredible honor to have them give you their approval.
Well, they're my friends. I mean, Frank Jr. and wrote the liner notes to my Songs of Sinatra album. I sang a couple of duets with him on that album, and I sang a duet with him on that album, and I sang a duet on his album. And he has really supported me ever since I started. Frank and Nancy and Tina and Mrs. Sinatra, both Mrs. Sinatras, I went to her Mrs. Sinatra's 90th birthday party. I was the only one in the family that was invited. Nancy Sr., I'm talking about. So they just have been very supportive all along. I sang at the Hollywood Bowl for them the night that Frank Sinatra was inducted into the Hollywood Bowl Hall of Fame with Quincy Jones. We did Fly Me to the Moon. I sung it at the New York Pops at Carnegie Hall for the Sinatra family when Frank was honored. So they've just been great friends and supporters. The person that really started me and stepped out from the Father of the Bride movies was Rosemary Clooney. She was the one that helped me the most. She gave me my first 2 gigs and insisted that I sing with her. I didn't meet the Sinatra family until I made my first album, and they heard it. But Rosemary Clooney is the one that heard me sing. I asked me to come be her guest at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. Then when my album came out, she helped me get booked at New York at Michael Feinstein's club, because her manager was also Michael's manager.
What did you find her to be like, Rosemary Clooney?
She was great. She was great. I mean, just a very generous person that went out of her way to find me and inspire me to continue to sing the Great American Songbook. Like, she had to go to some trouble to find my phone number. I'll tell you who called me yesterday, not 2 days ago, that knocked me out too, was Vic Damone.
Oh, my.
He called me out of the blue. I was working out and said he's been meaning to call me for a long time, that he hears my stuff, and that he really likes it. I mean, stuff like that really means a lot to people. Because they have to get your number from somebody. I mean, they have to go to some trouble to do that. And same way with Frank Jr. I heard from him when my album came out. And I don't know. That stuff means the world to you. It does to me anyway. When you have people that really invented this music and really know this music give you encouragement, you can't beat it.
The name of your forthcoming record is I'll Take Romance. What do you think about your newest album?
I love it. I mean, I like the songs. I like the arrangements. I think it's a romantic album, but it's a little bit more, in some ways, leaning a little more, has a little more R&B influence, like Sam Cooke's Sentimental Reasons. And I did a song from Little Willie John called Talk to Me that I love. And then there's one song from David Foster on there that's really good. That's a relatively new song. And then Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, who were my partners in music, and I've never done any of their music, have 2 songs on this album. And then there's the regular standards that I'm kind of known for. Plus, they're putting a bonus track of The Way You Look Tonight on as the last track, which hasn't been on one of my albums for like 10 years or something. And they're going to market this album to the wedding industry because so many people have used my music at their weddings. For President Clinton told me he danced to Chelsea to my version of The Way You Look Tonight, on and on. Because of those Father of the Bride movies, there's been so many people that have used my music at their nuptials. Oh, we also did At Last on this album, which is Etta James' song.
Oh, yeah.
Really, which is used a lot. It's the opening track, actually. And it's used so much at nuptials and weddings, and people like those words when they get married. So it's a romantic album with a message about commitment and love songs. Hopefully that brides and grooms can buy, and our people on their anniversaries and play it. The more albums you make, I think the better hopefully that you get. The more you sing, the more you know about singing. This is now my ninth album.
I think probably love is the most popular topic for a song. So with so many songs about romance, how did you go about picking the songs that you wanted to record?
There's so many great songs. That's the biggest difficulty in making an album or playing a live performance. It's not what songs you do, but which songs you don't, you leave out. Because now, like I said, I've made 9 albums, and most of them have been successful to some degree. Like they've all been top 5 on the Billboard Jazz charts. So people have those albums and they want to hear certain songs, and you can only play maybe 15 or 16 or 17 songs at the most at a concert. And I've recorded now like something. So they're all great. If people ask you what's your favorite song, you can't have a favorite song, really.
Could you pick a favorite song from this album?
God, I really couldn't. I mean, I'd say, what do you pick from? At Last, which is a great song, or The Way You Look Tonight, which is the song that changed my life, or Talk to Me, which is a jewel that most people don't know about, which is one of my favorite songs ever, from Little Willie John. It's a surprise in the album. I mean, you can't, it's like having a favorite kid.
When you do have the songs in mind, how do you go about approaching your interpretation?
I learn the songs first, note for note, from the way the guys, from whoever wrote them. And usually it's somebody great. So my feeling is that you should learn the song completely before you start interpreting it, so you know where it's coming from. You know what I mean? I don't think that I'm qualified to start out by writing a better melody than Cole Porter. Now, I can take his melody if I know it, close my eyes, and see what God gives me. You know what I mean? I need to know what the melody is to start off. I learn the songs first, note for note, the way I think they were written, and then I start singing them, and then stuff happens from there. That comes from your heart. I don't plan on it. And sometimes if they're influenced by whoever sang them, too. You can't help be influenced. If you're going to sing At Last, I can't help but be influenced by Etta James. If I'm going to sing Georgia on my mind, I got to listen to Brother Ray. I mean, he owns it. So I don't try to reinvent the wheel,
I was going to ask you also about the title track, I'll Take Romance. That features Judith Hill. Tell us about that song.
Judith Hill is a great young singer that I met when I was producing Rod Stewart's Soul Book album. She was about to go on the road with Michael Jackson. She's in his movie, This Is It. She was going to sing the duets with him on his last tour. He had discovered her and was going to introduce her to the world. And she's brilliant, great musician and a great singer. And so I asked her if she would sing that song with me, I'll Take Romance, on my album. I've been working with her ever since I met her. And I just think she's brilliant, and I think one of these days, soon, she's going to be a superstar. Michael Jackson thought so, too, or he wouldn't have been taking her out on the road with him.
Great track, that's for sure. You've produced so many artists' albums. There's one that I love a lot. It's not just one, but the Regis Philbin records that you did.
Yeah.
I thought those were really good. What was he like to work with?
Thank you. I love Regis. He's a great guy and a good friend, and I'm very sad that he's not on TV anymore, but he'll be doing something. I got to get a hold of him. I missed him in New York this last time. He always came to see me. He's always supported me. He loves music. He loves the Great American Songbook, and he's a good singer. He made a deal with Disney to do an album of standards. I think he suggested them that maybe they should get a hold of me, and they called me, and I said, yeah, I'd be glad to produce an album for Regis. And I ended up doing 2 of them. Is that one and a Christmas album that he made, too.
Is there anything on the horizons with you?
Business as usual. My new album's coming out. I have a DVD that I made in Texas that we're trying to finish up. That'll probably be the next thing that's released by me. I've never made a DVD of my live performances. Oh, I know what's new for me, too. In May, I'm going to go back and play the Cafe Carlisle, for the first time ever in May. I took over for Bobby Short when he passed away, and have played the holiday season there for 7 years. This year, I always play New Year's Eve, and I always close on New Year's Eve, and I play November and December. And this year is the first year that I'm going to come back in May and play 2 weeks at the end of May in New York. So that's new for me. But other than that, it's pretty much business as usual. What I've been doing, as many concerts as I can, and promote my new album.
What is the best thing about being Steve Tyrell?
Being able to make your own music, it's a privilege. It's not something I take lightly, especially in lieu of the fact that I didn't even know I'd be doing this. I mean, I made my first album when I was 52 years old. I mean, most people don't do that. I now have made 9 albums. I realize that I've been given the opportunity to play music all over the world and to make albums. You know, I'm excited to be on Concord Records. Kind of like a new beginning for me, a new label I've always, appreciated. And to make music. That's the best thing about being Steve Tyrell, to be able to make music, to produce music that's your own, that you can leave behind and people can listen to for as long as they want.
My last question. This interview goes out to many places, and it's heard by a lot of people around the world, actually. So my last question, what would you like to say to all the folks who are listening in?
Thank you for supporting my music, and if you have not heard my music, hopefully you'll get a chance to. You can go on stevetyrell.com and, find out who I am and listen to the music. But for the most part, I'm very appreciative to my fans who come year after year, place after place, and support me and tell me stories about how my music or my albums have helped them at some point in their life or in their to get through sicknesses or bad times or good times or whatever. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you to the people who supported me.
Mr. Tyrell, thank you very much for this interview. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
I hope you come to Atlanta.
Oh, me too, man. I love Atlanta. I don't get there nearly enough. I'd love to come to Atlanta. Need to be playing down there. I need to eat some of those good peaches you guys got down there in the grit.